Hi everyone, welcome to our Saturday book. Today we're looking at So Good They Can't Ignore You by Cal Newport. A really brilliant book, would recommend everyone to read it. And I think this conversation gives a perspective within that book that Cal Newport hasn't pulled out, and he doesn't need to really, because it's such a good book in its own right. But I think one of the reasons why it's so good maybe is because of this sort of existential truth within it that isn't explicitly stated but is the context. So the premise of the book is that when we're trying to find a job or a role or a mission or a purpose that is going to fulfill us, that is going to make us happy, that is going to make us become somebody, we're basically doomed to failure because it can't do that. Instead, what he's saying is immerse yourself in the job, in the field, in the knowledge, in the practice, in the discipline, in turning up when it's boring and monotonous and challenging and too difficult. Keep turning up, keep learning, and make the work all about the thing and not about the me, basically, is what he's saying. And there's I want to pull out three quotes from what he's shared. So this first one: passion comes after you put in the hard work to become excellent at something valuable, not before. In other words, what you do for a living is much less important than how you do it. And the book's full of examples of people who've given up careers or given up a solid job to pursue a passion project, start yoga teaching, open up a retreat somewhere, become a writer, without any of what he calls career capital, without any real knowledge, real immersion, real understanding, real credentials in that field, real knowledge of any of it really, and how it just doesn't work out because the premise of it was wrong. And I think from this conversation, our conversation, which is entirely about the fact that that individual separate I cannot be secured through anything out there. It cannot be secured through any circumstances, any experience, any control of emotion or activity, because it doesn't exist. And of course, Cal Newport, not a non-dualist, doesn't ever say that, but really that's what's going on. The that separate me that is trying to secure itself by following my passion, which isn't really a passion, because it hasn't yet even engaged with the real world to really see what the nitty gritty of it is. It's like a sort of dream. It doesn't exist. That me that thinks it's going to be somehow fulfilled, constantly happy, successful, loved, impactful, full of purpose. That separate me doesn't exist. Whereas the world of form, so the world of knowledge and materials and people and experiments and circumstances and events, that has an apparently, well, it has a relative reality to it. And as this superhuman, well, superpowered human mind is trained in that direction rather than in on itself. When the attention is trained out, it's like a laser, the human mind, that inquiry to really go to the very edges of knowledge, to really ask what's going on here? What is this really? How does this really work? What are there rules in this that are consistent, that are universal principles, or are things changing by circumstances? That is that's what the mind is for. It can't solve the problem of the me. It can't secure that me through what's out there. It can only look in the direction of what's out there, asking the question, what's really going on here? So that's the premise of the book, which is exactly the same as the premise that we're talking about here, just in different words. Another quote that I'd like to pull out, and again, this is a theme throughout his book: the 3 traits that make people love their work: impact, creativity, and control. And this, I think, is really useful for us to consider, because this stops there being an element of bypass. Because it's quite easy in a conversation about reality and about no self to say, well, everything's just thought, isn't it? Everything's just a creation of the mind. There's no reality. Therefore it doesn't make any difference if you're living on the poverty line, working 3 jobs, compared to being a multi-billionaire in a mansion. It doesn't make any difference. It's all thought. No, that is to bypass the critical importance of the body mind in which all experience is taking place. And just as the body mind flourishes in within a very narrow range of physical variables, like hydration, oxygen, temperature, exposure, so there are criteria and facilities of interaction and expression that also allow greater and greater flourishing. And what Cal Newport's book does, I think, really clearly is show that the human expression, human capacity, human intellect, human creativity, when it's given the capacity to have impact, so to exert its understanding, its knowledge, its will on situations, when it's given the capacity for creativity, and when it has freedom, so impact, creativity, and control, when it has its own aspect of freedom, then it flourishes. Then human productivity, efficiency, imagination, all of it is set free. And I think that's a very good bringing back of a spiritual conversation to the reality in which the human mind best operates, so that we don't bypass that, and so that we can really acknowledge when those 3 variables are not happening, then they're not available in a job, in a way of living, in a lifestyle, that the impact on the body mind will be substantial. It's not just thought. That's not just thought. It's relative reality. happening, that for the same reason that the body mind really struggles when it doesn't have enough water. Same thing going on. Yeah, and then the final quote, yeah, such a cool book. I really do. I love it. Really recommend it. We like to think of innovation as striking us in a stunning eureka moment where you all at once change the way people see the world, leaping far ahead of our current understanding. I'm arguing that in reality, innovation is more systematic. Yeah. And what he means by systematic is that the innovation is coming from a deepening immersion in the work, day in, day out, going through outside the bounds of comfort levels, a real engagement, an intellectual ongoing challenge to really test out, like to sort of exit the ease of assumption and sort of blind repetition and unquestioned platitudes and handed down knowledge, but a real ongoing engagement between mind and subject that, and he says, and it's a term that we use in our reset a lot, that means that the adjacent possible is accessed. So the innovation is there, isn't it? Like the internet was always there as a possibility, but for it to appear means that the layers obscuring it had to be gone through, and that's only possible by a mind that is continually on the very edges of knowledge, continually inquiring, and sort of active creativity of bringing together different fields and different known areas that can create gateways really to this adjacent and remote possible. Yeah, like I guess like musicians waking up with a song intact, writing it down in the morning, but the years and years and years and thousands of hours of musical immersion, life immersion, songwriting immersion that led to that moment. That's the systematic context that he's talking about. So it's a great book. It's all about reality, really, and it's all about the confusion of what this self might try to, how it might try to find happiness in places that it just will never find it. Happiness, fulfillment, purpose, passion, it won't find it. It's through the immersion in reality, not just that there's a greater and greater understanding of that reality, but also through that process, the idea of securing the self becomes less and less interesting. Yeah, so a cool book. Highly recommend it. Lots of love. Bye.